The Heinkel He 178 was the first aircraft in history to fly using a turbojet engine. It flew in August 1939, powered by the HES-3 engine, developed by Hans von Ohain. The aircraft was small, experimental, and strictly a technology demonstrator. It had no weapons and no operational role. Its significance was purely technical. It proved that jet propulsion was viable. The German Air Ministry showed little immediate interest, delaying further development. The Heinkel He 280 was the first jet fighter prototype. It first flew in 1941 and featured twin turbojet engines and tricycle landing gear, which was advanced for its time. It was also the first aircraft equipped with an ejection seat. Despite promising performance, engine reliability issues and political preference for competing designs led to its cancellation in 1943. It never entered production. The Messerschmitt Me 262 was the first operational jet fighter. Introduced in 1944, it used twin Junkers Jumo 004 engines and significantly outperformed Allied piston fighters in speed. Armed with 30mm cannons and later adapted as a fighter-bomber, it was capable of destroying heavy bombers quickly. Engine life was short, often around 25 flight hours. Fuel shortages, pilot training gaps, and late deployment limited its strategic impact. Roughly 1,400 were built, but far fewer were combat-ready at any time. The Arado Ar 234 was the world's first operational jet-powered bomber and reconnaissance aircraft. Entering service in 1944, it used 2 or 4 turbojet engines, depending on the variant. Its speed made interception difficult, especially in reconnaissance roles over Allied territory. Bombing accuracy was limited by speed and basic targeting systems. Production remained relatively low, and operational influence was constrained by Germany's deteriorating war position. The Heinkel He 162 was a lightweight single-engine jet fighter rushed into production in late 1944 under the Volksjäger concept. Built largely from wood to conserve strategic materials, it was designed for rapid mass production. It was fast but unstable and difficult to fly, especially for inexperienced pilots. Mechanical failures were common. It saw limited combat before Germany's surrender in 1945. The Horten Ho 229 was a jet-powered flying wing fighter, prototype. Designed to reduce drag and potentially radar visibility, it first flew in 1944 as a glider and later in powered form. It used twin Jumo 004 engines. Only a few prototypes were built, and it never reached operational status. Its aerodynamic design was advanced, but development came too late to affect the war. The Junkers Ju 287 was an experimental jet bomber featuring forward-swept wings to improve low-speed handling. First flown in 1944, it used multiple jet engines mounted externally. The design addressed structural and aerodynamic challenges, but remained in prototype form. The program ended with Germany's collapse. The Caproni Campini N1 was an Italian motorjet aircraft that first flew in 1940. It used a piston engine to drive a compressor that generated jet thrust. While technically jet-propelled, it lacked the efficiency and performance of true turbojets. It was slow and impractical as a combat aircraft. Only 2 were built, and it remained experimental. Gloster E.28 was Britain's first jet aircraft and first flew in 1941. Powered by Frank Whittle's turbojet engine, it served as a test platform to validate British jet technology. It was unarmed and purely experimental. The data gathered from it directly influenced Britain's first operational jet fighter. The Gloster Meteor was the first Allied operational jet fighter. Entering service in 1944, it used twin turbojet engines and initially focused on intercepting V-1 flying bombs. It avoided direct engagement with German jets to prevent technology capture. Its performance was superior to piston fighters in speed, but initially limited by engine reliability and compressibility effects at high speed. It remained in service after the war and evolved into multiple variants. The de Havilland Vampire first flew in 1943, but entered service after World War II. It featured a twin-boom design and a single turbojet engine. Development progressed during the war, but operational deployment occurred too late for combat. It became one of the most successful early jet fighters in the post-war period. The Nakajima Kikka was Japan's first jet aircraft. Inspired by German jet developments, it first flew in August 1945. It was smaller than the Me-262 and designed primarily as a fast-attack aircraft. Only 2 prototypes were completed before Japan's surrender. It never entered combat. The Mikoyan Gurevich I-250 was a Soviet mixed-propulsion fighter combining a piston engine with a motorjet booster. First flown in 1945, it aimed to achieve higher speeds than conventional piston fighters. It saw limited production and entered service in small numbers after the war. Its hybrid system was complex and quickly overtaken by pure turbojet designs. The Sukhoi Su-5 was another Soviet mixed-power fighter prototype, flying in 1945. Like the I-250, it combined a piston engine with a motorjet unit. Performance gains were modest, and the design added mechanical complexity. Development ended as the Soviet Union shifted fully toward turbojet fighters. The Bell P-59 era Comet was the first American jet fighter. It first flew in 1942 and was powered by twin General Electric turbojet engines derived from British Whittle designs. Performance was underwhelming. It was slower than contemporary piston fighters and suffered from poor acceleration and reliability issues. Around 60 were built, but it never saw combat. It served primarily as a training and test platform to transition U.S. pilots and engineers into jet operations. The Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star first flew in 1944 and became the United States' first operational jet fighter. Designed around a single centrifugal flow turbojet, it was faster and more aerodynamically refined than the P-59. A small number were deployed to Italy in 1945, but they did not see combat before. The war ended. Its real operational impact came after World War II, but its development and limited wartime deployment place it within the conflict's jet history. The Ryan FR-1 Fireball was a mixed-propulsion naval fighter developed for the U.S. Navy. It first flew in 1944 and combined a piston engine in the nose with a turbojet in the tail. The piston engine handled cruising and takeoff, while the jet provided additional speed. It entered service in 1945 but did not see combat before the war ended. The concept reflected transitional thinking as navies evaluated jet integration on aircraft carriers. The McDonnell FD-1 Phantom first flew in early 1945. It was a straight-wing, twin-engine jet designed for carrier operations. Development progressed rapidly, but the aircraft did not enter operational service until after the war. It marked the beginning of McDonnell's long involvement in jet fighter production. Its wartime status was developmental rather than operational. The Yokosuka MXY-7 Oka Model 22 was a jet-powered version of Japan's rocket-powered suicide aircraft. Unlike the earlier rocket models, the Model 22 used a small turbojet engine to extend range before the final dive. Development began in 1945, but the war ended before it could be deployed operationally. It represented Japan's attempt to adapt jet propulsion under severe industrial and resource constraints. Karyu, the Kawasaki Ki-201 Karyu, was a projected Japanese jet fighter inspired heavily by the German Me-262. Design work began in 1945 as Japan attempted to field a twin-engine jet interceptor. The aircraft remained on the drawing board, and no prototype was completed before Japan's surrender. It reflected late-war urgency rather than realistic production capability. The Focke-Wulf Ta-183 was a German jet fighter design, finalized in 1945. It featured swept wings and a high-mounted tailplane, representing a more advanced aerodynamic approach than earlier German jets. No prototype was completed before the end of the war. Although it never flew, its design concepts influenced post-war jet development in several countries. The Heinkel He 343 was a jet-powered bomber project intended as a successor to the R-234. It was designed with 4 turbojet engines and greater bomb capacity. Development progressed to the prototype construction stage in 1944 and 1945, but none were completed before Germany's surrender. The aircraft remained a late-stage project rather than an operational system. Messerschmitt Me 101 was an experimental jet fighter project featuring variable sweep wings. Development advanced to partial prototype construction by 1945. The aircraft was never completed under German control, but captured airframes and documentation influenced later variable geometry research. It represented forward-thinking aerodynamics at a time when Germany lacked the resources to complete it. The Northrop XP-79B was a U.S. jet-powered flying wing interceptor. It first flew in 1945 and used twin turbojet engines. The aircraft featured a prone pilot position intended to improve tolerance to high acceleration. The single prototype crashed during its first powered flight, killing the test pilot. The program was canceled immediately. It remained an experimental attempt to merge jet propulsion with unconventional airframe design.